This is Korea News for March 22, 2022. On the 21st, Moon Jae-in cites security as the reason for the relocation of President-elect Yoon Seok-yeol's office to Yongsan, saying it is unreasonable. On the same day, Moon Jae-in personally attended the National Security Council, which dealt with the issue of the Yongsan relocation. Moon Jae-in did not attend the NSC even when North Korea blew up the Inter-Korean Joint Liaison Office. Because of this, critics say that Moon Jae-in is effectively opposing the relocation of President-elect Yoon's office to Yongsan and has started to hold back. The Blue House, citing the situation in which North Korea is continuing its series of provocations this year with ballistic missiles and multiple rocket launchers, argued that if the Blue House Crisis Management Center, the Ministry of National Defense, and the Joint Chiefs of Staff were moved in series, it could lead to a security vacuum and confusion. An official from the Blue House said, North Korea's annual event is scheduled for April, and among them, North Korea's missile launches are continuing, including the 10th missile launch this year alone. As it is the time of the event, he said that he judged this period to be the most escalating situation in the security of the Korean peninsula. Moon Jae-in said, until 12 o'clock on the last day of the term of office, national security and command of the military are the inseparable responsibilities of the current government and the current president. However, according to Moon Jae-in, whenever North Korea provocations occur, the Blue House has been emphasizing dialogue, only criticizing in a detour, and there are also cases where the NSC did not directly preside, so it is pointed out that the logic asserted on that day is not well understood. In particular, some criticize that it is hard to understand why Moon Jae-in visited the Blue House Crisis Management Center and discussed whether the move to Yongsan was justified by attending an expanded NSC ministerial meeting on the day after President-elect Yoon announced his plan to relocate the Oval Office to Yongsan on the 20th. Moon Jae-in did not attend the NSC even when North Korea bombed the North-South Joint Liaison Office in June 2020 without the consent of the South Korean government. Opposition parties criticized Moon Jae-in for saying that he is now opposing for the sake of opposition. President-elect Yoon Seok-yeol, who was unable to attend the Oval Office in Yongsan, Seoul on the first day of his inauguration due to the Blue House's restraint, decided to start his first day of office on May 10 at the Oval Office of the President-elect in Tungyi-dong. This is an unprecedented situation in constitutional history in which the President begins his duties outside the Blue House at his own will. However, the President-elect did not reveal the exact position of whether the President's duties at the office of the Presidential Transition Committee, where security is weak, are realistically possible, or how the relocation to the Ministry of National Defense will be delayed. President-elect Yoon's displeasure is evident in the expression of President-elect Kim Il-sung's expression that Moon Jae-in refuses to cooperate with the most representative task of taking over the government. As the new and old powers clash head-on, there are observations that the timing of Moon Jae-in's departure from the Blue House may change. At midnight on May 10, Moon Jae-in becomes a former president, and the legal authority of the president passes to Yoon-elect. Successive presidents have allowed his predecessor to leave the Blue House on the day of his inauguration after spending the last night of his term at the official residence. Former President Roh Moo-hyun also left the Blue House at 10:30 a.m. on February 25, 2008. On the last day of his tenure, former President Roh had a farewell dinner with 230 former and current vice ministers at the Blue House, and the next day, he left the Blue House to attend the inauguration of former President Lee Myung-bak and headed to Bongha Village. Former President Lee Myung-bak left the Blue House at 4 p.m. on February 24, 2013, and returned to his private residence in Nonhyeon-dong, Gangnam-gu, Seoul, so that his successor, former President Park, could move in. He vacated the Blue House 8 hours before the end of his tenure, and the National Command Network was maintained at his private residence in Nonhyeon-dong until 12 p.m. On the other hand, it seems that President-elect Yoon's side will pressure Moon Jae-in to vacate his official residence on the night of May 9, as per the law, using the promise of opening the Blue House at the beginning of his term as a pretext. Spokesperson Kim emphasized, as of midnight on May 10, President-elect Yoon will surely fulfill his promise to completely open the Blue House. It means that he has no intention of taking care of his predecessor. On the 22nd, President-elect Yoon Seok-yeol's side said, as of midnight on May 10, we will surely fulfill our promise to fully open the Blue House. At a briefing on the morning of the same day, President-elect Kim In-hye, spokeswoman for the President-elect, asked whether the current Moon Jae-in administration's term of office would open up the Blue House means that the Blue House should be vacated before the term and whether it is considered the correct process of the transition process. When asked, he said, "We are not scary tenants." He added, "How do we tell the person who sleeps to leave?" In addition, spokesperson Kim said the day before, Park Soo-hyun, senior presidential secretary for public communication, said about Yoon's promise to relocate to the Oval Office, "We failed to keep our promise to open the Gwangae-Wamun era, but we expect that Yoon's will be kept." He and Yoon Seok-yeol said that he thought that the handover of the business would be smooth because it was one of the few promises they had in common. It was confirmed that the Ministry of Gender Equality and Family had not been notified of the schedule of the report on the work report of the Transition Committee, which was elected President Yoon Seok-yeol. In fact, there are speculations that the Ministry of Leisure is in the process of being abolished. An official from the Ministry of Gender Equality and Family said on the 21st, he said that he had not yet been contacted about the work report schedule. The Transition Committee will receive reports on the work of major ministries by each division this week. The Vice Minister and the head of the Planning and Coordination Office will brief the Acquisition Committee on business reports. The work report is considered the first step in setting the policy priorities of the next government and checking the outline of the government reorganization. The Ministry of Gender Equality and Family failed to dispatch the Transition Committee, and the business report was not scheduled. Previously, the Ministry of Gender Equality and Family recommended 4 dispatched employees to the Transition Committee, but they were not included in the 184 members of the Transition Committee as they were ultimately excluded. Initially, the Ministry of Human Resources and Innovation requested that each ministry recommend the staff dispatched to the Transition Committee. Accordingly, the Ministry of Gender Equality and Family submitted a list of 2 directors and 2 managers to the Transition Committee, but the members of the Ministry of Gender Equality and Family were not included in the composition of the Transition Committee. An official from the Ministry of Gender Equality and Family said, "No one has been officially notified of the dispatched person among the recommended list." The abolition of the Ministry of Gender Equality and Family is a major promise of President-elect Yoon. Regarding the abolition of the Ministry of Gender Equality and Family on the 13th, President-elect Yoon said, "The Ministry of Gender Equality and Family has not fulfilled its historical mission. I mentioned that unfairness issues are difficult to solve now. It has been confirmed that the Supreme Prosecutor's Office has delivered an opinion in favor of President-elect Yoon Seok-yeol's key promise in the judicial field, abolition of the minister's right to direct investigation, to the Ministry of Justice. This is an opinion that contradicts Justice Minister Park Beum-jae, who had previously expressed opposition." According to the legal community on the 21st, ahead of the report on pending issues to the Ministry of Justice's Takeover Committee scheduled for weekdays, the Supreme Prosecutor's Office delivered an opinion to the Ministry of Justice in favor of the abolition of the Justice Minister's right to direct investigation. The Supreme Prosecutor's Office judged that although the Minister can control the prosecution through General Investigation Command and Supervision and Personnel Authority, giving specific investigation command does not match the guarantee of independence and political neutrality of the prosecution investigation. It is known that such opinions were delivered after receiving the approval of Prosecutor General Kim Oh-soo. The abolition of the minister's right to direct investigation is a key promise of President-elect Yoon in the judicial field. On the 14th of last month, President-elect Yoon made a promise for judicial reform and promised to abolish the investigation command, saying, "The minister is a politician, and the specific investigation command is to prevent interference in the investigation because there are more abuses." Since the enactment of the Prosecutor's Office Act in 1949, President-elect Yoon has been conducting investigations a total of 4 times, and among them, former Justice Minister Chu Mie and Minister Park exercised their command 3 times, which were invoked by the current government, as examples of abuse. However, Minister Park maintained his opposition to the abolition of Yoon-elect's investigative authority. On the 14th, through the media, he said, "I do not think that the political neutrality and fairness of the investigation are guaranteed by the abolition of the investigation command. Draws a line that will get worse. As there is a difference in position between the Supreme Prosecutor's Office and the Ministry of Justice, the Supreme Prosecutor's Office plans to continue negotiating with the Ministry of Justice until the Transition Committee reports." The Ministry of Justice has also not decided whether to report to the Transition Committee, including the opinion of the Supreme Prosecutor. Inside and outside the prosecution, if opinions run in parallel between the Ministry of Justice and the Supreme Prosecutor's Office, it is highly likely that the opinions of the Ministry of Justice and the Supreme Prosecutor will be included and reported to the Transition Committee. The U.S. Free Asia Radio RFA reported on the 21st that the North Korean female workers dispatched to Shanghai, China in the middle of last month and the manager in charge disappeared, and it appears that the group defected. According to RFA, a North Korean source in Dalian, China, said, in the middle of last month, North Korean women sewing workers working at a clothing company in Shanghai disappeared collectively while quarantined to prevent the spread of the coronavirus. The source said, 20 female workers have disappeared, and the manager who is in charge of management and supervision also disappeared. The president of the Chinese company that hired them called the manager, but he did not answer the phone, so he went to the dormitory and found out that they had disappeared. The news of the disappearance was immediately reported to the North Korean consulate in Beijing, and the consulate general requested cooperation with Chinese police, the source added. The source continued, as the whereabouts of those who disappeared a month after the disappearance have not been found, the North Korean side said that it is highly likely that they defected as a group. A North Korean source in Dandong, China also said, "I heard from a North Korean representative in Dandong that a manager who was in charge of North Korean women workers who worked as a sewing machine in a clothing factory in Shanghai had disappeared with 20 female workers." He said, "As there is no word that North Korean workers and managers have been caught, it appears to be a planned defection led by a guide." Thank you for watching today. Please like and subscribe.